I had a viewer recently ask me to cover the city of Ghent in Belgium several times. I was hesitant because I just recently covered Antwerp, so I figured maybe an overload of Belgium, but then when you look at Belgium, you think, how can you be overloaded? The architecture is spectacular. So we're going to look at the city of Ghent. You can see it here, the third largest city in Belgium behind Brussels and Antwerp. And we are in the business of pattern recognition here on this channel. So we're going to look at a little bit of the past of Belgium. Here we have the Belgian Revolution of 1830 with its wonderful painting, very reminiscent of the paintings we get from the American Revolution and the French Revolution, happening a little bit before the Belgian one. Although notice the similarities with the French and the Belgian. I think there's a lot of symbolism going on in these paintings. I think this is all wrapped up in with the secret society gentleman painting a false historical narrative. We also have the Brabant Revolution happening around the same time as the other two, a little bit later I suppose, 1789 and 1790. Apparently this is a scene in Ghent of the revolution again. We have the depictions, all looking very similar, although you have amazing architecture, and if I look in the background here, almost looking like a structure we'll see as part of Ghent's World Fair. And as a result of the Belgian Revolution, we have the Treaty of London happening in 1839, where these European powers are carving up this area of Europe, the lower part of the Netherlands becoming the Kingdom of Belgium. And we'll look at some royalty as we move through this video as well. And this is King William I of the Netherlands, supposedly the despotic ruler that the Belgians were revolting against. And we see similar, again, the symbolism I mentioned. We see the similar hand pointing that we get in a lot of these old photographs. And here we have the Belgian King, Leopold, being installed in 1831. And it's my proposition here on this channel that all of these are a part of the Brotherhood of Deception, if you will. And this going back to 1790, the Brabant Revolution. And you can see again the background showing us so much of the architecture, throw in a windmill for good measure. But all looking very familiar with everything going on at the time, transferring out of the age of the wigs and tights gentlemen into the 1800s. I think a lot of this is fiction. I think it has been painted, literally painted for our consumption. Even the statues they have of these gentlemen in the modern day still showing us the symbolism. But let's get into the architecture of the city of Ghent. And unfortunately I could not find historical population statistics for the city of Ghent, or Ghent, some people pronounce it. I have a 50,000 in 1300, a population of 50,000, and that'll try to explain a lot of what we see of the architecture. Looking to be under 200,000 in and around the turn of the 20th century. This is just a train station, and building in the foreground, not sure. A lot of postcards in this. Beautiful looking city, and they'll say a medieval looking city, and I think if you're into this research at all, you'll be familiar with what medieval, the symbolism there, the deception going on there. If you understand the modification of our historical timeline, then you'll understand there's much more going on there, I think. Several large towers dating way back in time, going back 600-700 years, as you'll see moving forward. A wonderful looking bridge close to the train station. Of course they had the streetcars, like everywhere did. The timeline on the streetcars, to me, very comical at this point, having seen them everywhere I have looked, trying to fathom how this technology was mass-produced and used all over the world is so far-fetched. This is an interesting photograph showing us these large wheels. Not sure what these were for. If anyone knows what these might have been for, throw that in the comments section. I'd be interested to know. Interesting photo. Unique. Have not really come across that. So here we have another painting, of course, from 1540, supposedly, of Ghent, the medieval city, and you can see how well built out it was even at that time with all its castles and towers. And also with the walls. You can see a lot of the walls surrounding the city, no doubt some sort of star fort city there. And if you put this into the context of the old world deception, I think we're seeing a lot of remnants of a majestic city, old world city that history has overlaid with several explanations, several different timelines to explain away a lot of the architecture. We do have an asylum. You can see here, we're told this one's built in 1857, and it is a modern day museum to this Dr. Guzlain, who apparently was a benevolent psychiatric doctor who believed that many of the practices were barbaric and was striving to treat the mentally ill in a more humane way. And that always seems to be the same old story. The fact that you have so many people who are insane, who cannot adjust to the society. I always wondered that. What does it mean to be well adjusted? What are we adjusting to? I think we're adjusting to the New World agenda, and this was happening everywhere. Ghent, no exception. Again, we're in the business of pattern recognition here, and the pattern seems to repeat itself. Here's a close-up of some of the iconography you'll find on this asylum. Interesting too, this brickwork looking very gray or black, scorched. You do see some red in here, looking like something has happened here. Interesting how they've woven the bricks around here. This clearly is not original to my eye. This face, this creepy face, and just a ghostly image of people that were housed in these asylums. How they broke so many of the people at the time. This is the Belfry Tower, supposedly built in 1380. Looking very well constructed. We will see it again, reminiscent of a cathedral, which there are several in Ghent. And often the story with many of these old structures is that they were renovated down through time, alterations were made. Very difficult to pinpoint construction dates on a lot of these. But obviously a landmark in the city. Okay, and not a large city even in the modern day, not much more than 200,000. Interesting to see all the dormers on the tower portion here. And notice too this clock, looking very after the fact, having the IV for the 4. We see a lot of 4 eyes. This one showing us the one that I was taught in school. And just a look at the spiral staircase going up to the Belfry Tower. This they call the Bond Moisson, socialist headquarters. You can kind of see the writing here. Still stands. Some of the upper areas have been detechified, if you will. But clearly an old world structure to my eye. Also, this front entry has been flattened off. You can see what it once was here with the arch. So why do they make these alterations? These are all questions we ask in this field of research. Another very old structure dating back almost 1,000 years. The Castle of the Counts, Gravenstein Castle. And we're going to see some interesting evidence here of potential heat damage. And you can see that here. And some people will make the argument that these are repairs. I would suggest that we're looking at some sort of heat damage, and much of this has been turned to stone and was originally possibly red brick. hard to really say with any certainty that they built this in such a manner. It looks very damaged to me, with patches of red brick all over the place. Things to keep in mind are they designating the buildings that took more damage as older? This is what I hypothesize here on this channel. Some of the interior of the almost 1,000-year-old, we're told, structure, Gravenstein Castle. Here we have Citadel Park, the entrance to Citadel Park. And we have some strangeness going on in there as well, with some of these caves, very melted looking, well, archways, I suppose you could say. Very melted looking, so worthy of inclusion for sure. This is the Hotel de Ville, or City Hall. Again, you can see up here you have this strange, I don't know, is this some sort of tech? See this on a lot of old postcards up in the top of the structure. And this again is an old structure, 400-year-old, kind of a convoluted history as far as when this was built, looking very much like we would designate a cathedral as far as the iconography and finishing details are concerned. And a bit of a blend as well here on the corner, this looking much different than the one on the back here. Just a close-up of some of the statues you're likely to see on this spectacular looking City Hall. Certainly would be a wonderful city to go visit. So much seems to have been preserved. A little look at the interior. Again, what is being depicted for us? Have these been placed? Have these to give us a sense of a timeline? Or is this how they actually did dress in the old world? These are all things that I wonder. I've seen so many structures where the statues have been removed and these are just empty areas. So was there a wholesale effort to rewrite the past? And you can see here, statues look like they've been removed. Alright, that one snuck in there. We've seen that castle already. Maybe they're rebuilding it, supposedly, in this. I'm not sure. We come to the Exposition of 1913. This exposition ran from April to November of 1913, just 2 years off the mark of the Great San Francisco Exposition. So this happening all over the place, not just in North America, these World's Fairs. We have several buildings being constructed to meet completion and ready for the exposition. And they say it was controversial because the exposition ended right on the eve of WW1 and incurred serious debts. And they don't really mention that these were temporary structures, but I would make the assumption that they were, since so many of them no longer stand. Let's do a little walkthrough of the Exposition of 1913. Look at this one, unbelievable looking structure, very in keeping with what we've seen with the permanent architecture in Ghent. And some of these looking like some of the other World Fairs we've looked at on this channel in North America, such as this Avenue of Nations. Of course, with the fountains and the pools. This one of the strangest ones. Looking more like something you would see in the 30s, not so much in 1913. That's an odd one for sure. But so much to take in. Looks like you have the chutes possibly here, some sort of elevated tramway. This was the structure I was talking about we saw in the intro, possibly being depicted in 1790, not sure, but looking very similar, the Dutch Pavilion. We'll see that again one more time. I'm getting all that classic statue work that we see in these World Fairs. Of course, the lights, very extravagant, very overly ornate. And of course the human zoos making an appearance in this World's Fair as well. A very ugly underbelly to these World's Fairs, trying to set a narrative, a hierarchy of races and peoples. And we have, again, looking very reminiscent of what we've seen in other locations. Another human zoo here in the Senegalese village. Canadian Palace, woohoo! Looking very much like something I've seen in St. Louis. And we'll keep moving forward. There's that Dutch pavilion once again. Temporary structures. Take a look at this ladder. That's a ladder upon a ladder upon a ladder. And there you have the street cars rolling through. This looking very permanent, of course. French colonies building. And it really doesn't amaze me anymore to find this, almost no matter where you look. Many of these cities have these world fairs, these kickoffs. It seems like they're being, the new narrative is being kicked off with these, and then they're destroying much of what once was. Not looking, that's very, very much made of brick. There's nothing temporary about that structure. Or these. None of these looking temporary whatsoever. We see that one again. Just move quickly through the World's Fair and we'll get back to the architecture of the city itself. And before we do, we'll take a quick look at King Albert and Queen Elizabeth of the Netherlands visiting the World's Fair at the time. Let's take a closer look at Queen Elizabeth. I'll just leave that on your doorstep. And moving on back to the architecture, the fish market. Very interesting looking structure. All sorts of iconography. So much of this city having the canals and the buildings built right to the edge of the water. And that all gets explained away with the medieval designation, as if they had just armies of skilled workers to construct all of this back in the low population days, 500, 600 years ago. And this is one of the structures that was supposedly built for the World's Fair, the Flandrea Palace Hotel. They say they completed it a year before the World's Fair. Still stands, there it is in the modern day. This was also designated the Flandrea Palace. I'm not sure if this is in Ghent, but I thought I'd throw it in there. An interesting looking structure to be sure. Just a closer look at the construction of the Flandrea Palace. Yeah, the streets of Ghent are quite magnificent. Of course, you have the brick paved streets. Very eye-catching view, to be sure. Nearby we have the Castile Vanl Castle. This one dating way back as well. I couldn't pinpoint a construction date since it's so convoluted, but I thought I'd show you. And I also want you to take note of the blending of these rounded little stone thingies and then the brick on top. Also with the really heavy grout lines, potential leaching going on. Old designations suggesting possibly that this is a damaged structure in many cases and possibly has been rebuilt several times. Very convoluted history. Worthy of inclusion for sure. The corn market, dating back quite a ways, again going back several hundred years. Again, I didn't pinpoint the date. Looking a lot like the post office you'll see as well, and showing us the very high quality of construction. Of course, the nodes, many have hypothesized having to do with the collection of the etheric energy not just a style, much more to the story. Here's a closer look at the corn market with its statues. And just more of the same. The Maison de Batelier along the waterfront, the canals. There it is in the modern day. No doubt this would be a hot spot for tourists to come check out Ghent. I have the museum, and kind of looking a little bit unique as far as the architecture is concerned. It still stands. Here it is in the modern day. The Ustacher Basilica, built in 1876. Red bricker, and including the Lourdes shrine, looking very melted to my eye. I don't think any of this is in its original state. Even the archways over the openings, these are kind of looking like melted dome structures. A lot of red in there as well. Interesting. Anytime you see these grottos, I think they call them, with all of their homage to the lady or whoever it might be. Usually it's to Mary. I think we're looking at damaged structure. And it's just the interior of that Ustacher. Another look at the grotto, and even the iron pipe coming out of here looking very much heat damaged. So not just the rock itself. Very interesting. They have an opera house, of course, in Ghent. This one built in 1840, we're told. And some interior shots. First we have a drawing showing you the grandeur of the opera house. Privately funded, we're told, this one. Some of the interior, absolutely breathtaking. Screaming at us old world. Right in around the same time we have the Palace of Justice, being built 1846, right along the banks, of course. Very strange. And in that same area you have this modern brutalist monstrosity going up, really shrouding the beauty of the old world all around it. I think these are almost markers, victory markers over the old world, I suggest. That came up a lot in my Antwerp video as well. Now we get to the post office. Built in 1910, we're told, so the timelines are jumping all over the place. The corn market was built in several hundred years ago. This one looking almost identical, and built in 1910. I don't know if I believe that. Well, I don't believe that, but I'm not sure how they can convolute these timelines. It makes you wonder about the memory of the past in these locations. What kind of memory is held there? I know we had major conflagrations in the 20th century, and I think that had a large hand to play in the wiping of our collective memory, as I've mentioned many times on this channel. This is the Rabot Gate, probably saying that wrong. This one dating way back, 1491, so 500 years old. The year before Columbus sailed to America, they built this gate. And again, you're seeing blending brick and stone. Very precise stonework going on here. And I found it very easy to get confused when doing research on these cathedrals. This is the St. Babos Cathedral, built between the 13th and 16th centuries, we're told, so 300 years to figure this one out. Because they have several, sometimes the interior shots get a little bit confusing. So I hope I have them right. If you know more about the location, of course, throw that in the comments. Let me know where I went wrong. If you look closely, a lot of this material looking like it was potentially brick. You can see the sizing going on there. And of course lost all its color. And I guess the nodes again as well. They'll say it's just for decoration. I'll say it's for function. and just a look at some of the interior of this spectacular cathedral. And you can see the red brick on the interior with these amazing arched ceilings. St. Michael's Church, again a 400-year window to build this thing. Now we're jumping back to St. Babos. I'm not sure this is what I was talking about. Some of the interiors get a little bit muddy and confusing, but certainly worthy of featuring nonetheless. Very ornate looking work. Probably St. Babos again. This guy's looking very safe as he walks down the main corridor. And just a look at the streets and bridges again, screaming at his old world. So it's not just a style, it's not just a European style. This is all part of a previous civilization, is my hypothesis. St. Nicholas Church. Let's take a closer look at the building materials here. Looking very scorched. Some of the interior, again, very... not a large city. Remember what I said about the population. The resources that would have to have gone into the building of these. Look at this. You've just put like a little circular column on the side of a circular column. It's beyond understanding of how these were put together. And then you get a little closer and you see what looks to be a bit of brick. So interesting blending going on there. More brick up top. Now, if the cathedrals were cathodes for an energetic system, you could imagine what type of damage may have been done. Maybe these were all coated, maybe they were much more spectacular than they actually are in the modern day. And a breathtaking wood carving. And not sure what these were for, actually, too. I know they'll say they were a pulpit of some sort. You see these a lot in the old cathedrals. I think there's much more going on here. Maybe this was some sort of energy charging station. It's obviously just speculating. But I think there's more to these than we understand. St. Martin's Church from the 16th century. Showing us again the brick below and what they'll say is stone, but the shape of brick on the tower as well. And just some of the interior of St. Martin's Church with its modern chairs. Again to St. Babos, or St. Bavo, St. Bavon. Very confusing. We'll keep moving forward though. Definitely worth showing you all of this though. And you have again the street light. You've seen this in a lot of old world postcards and photographs where the light comes across the street and it just dangles above. St. Elizabeth Church, this one dating back to the mid-13th century. Back then they're using brick apparently. Much of this brick looking intact and red still. Interesting on the top here, this is very unique. Double ball. Almost looking like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Alright, let's get past the churches. Get to the St. Peter's Station. This one also built for the World's Fair. Completed a year before. Still stands in the modern day. Let's take a look at it. Here we have the St. Peter's Station. With all that red brick, the structure next to it. And just look at the interior of this one. 1912 now, they're building this in Ghent. Right before Europe gets turned upside down, we're told. I think the turning upside down happened not just throughout that 5-year period of WW1, but I think it was an ongoing process. There's a massive distortion in our historical timeline. We have the tower, the little tower they call this. Again, predating Columbus's voyage. There it is in the modern day, and again I hypothesize that we're looking at was once probably red brick, and something has changed in material. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that theory, but I feel like I've seen enough to say that when I see it, otherwise built almost exactly like you would a red brick structure. You can even see the rounding and misshapen areas over here. These are things to consider when you're looking at what we're told are stone structures, what's really going on there. So this is the station we saw earlier, I believe, unless it's a different one, the Dampoorf station. And we'll just close out the video with a few more breathtaking views of the city of Ghent. So I am going to try to cover more other locations. I think I want to hop to South America as well and cover some of those cities. If you have a city in mind, let me know. If you really want me to do a city, you could consider making a donation, and I will put that right at the top of the list. Otherwise, there's a bit of a long list before you'll see the city that I cover. But I do try to consider all your comments when you do request a location. So Ghent, what do you think? Old world, or is the story on the up and up? Thanks for joining me. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.